Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, December 28th, 2022. And this morning we are at Chicot State Park in South Central Louisiana, which is just north of Ville Platte. This is a very popular park for a lot of people to come to. It has a lot of amenities, has definitely a lot of camping available, whether it be for an RV or a tent. And there's also 6 primitive campsites. You can do a lot of fishing out here. You can rent canoes. Just a wonderful place to come out. And one of the big attractions out here is Lake Chicot. The park encloses the entire lake. It's a very nice place to come out and fish, rent a canoe. And there's a trail that we're going to be hiking over the next 2 days. It goes all the way around the lake. It's a little under 20 miles. And we're going to hike this clockwise. Actually, I'm standing at the South Landing trailhead, and we're going to end up hiking over in this direction. And we're going to hike about 11 miles today, maybe closer to 12. But tomorrow we're going to end up back here. You can see the orange flag. So it's a complete loop. I'm definitely very excited about hiking this. This is our first overnight backpacking trip for the year. So we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, at about mile marker 2.5, we're at the Walker Branch trailhead. You can see this is the North Landing Road. There's the sign for the Walker Branch trailhead parking area. And then of course there's the bridge we just crossed. And so we're gonna now walk for about another 2.5 miles and get to the North Landing trailhead. All right, we're at the second intersection of the road. I didn't want to stop and do a video for long because they had a guy with, looked like his grandkids, getting out of the car and about to get on trails. So we're about, I would say, a little over 4.5 miles in. We have a little under a mile left to get to campsite number 5, which is just a very short walk off the trail. I plan on stopping there and taking a lunch break, but this is where we headed next. All right, right around mile marker 5, is where we get to one of several long footbridges across this lake, and you can see how beautiful it is. I'm gonna stop for a second and show you the top of the trees. Definitely quintessential South Louisiana with the bald cypress. So we're about half a mile from campsite number 5. All right, we're back on trail. We just popped off the trail on that trail that leads you to campsite 5, just a short distance, because they had a log to sit on, and it's 2/10 of a mile to get to the campsite. So to save us a little time and miles, went ahead and just stopped right there. So we're now headed over to the East Landing section. So basically right now, we're now getting on the northern edge of this trail, and we're gonna start seeing a few changes along the way. There's gonna be another bridge in a little while, I believe, and then we're gonna pop on the levee for a little while. But I wanted to go ahead and tell you my thoughts so far in the first 5.5 miles or so of this trail. The first section, if you start out from the South Landing going to the North Landing in that direction, it is very slopey. It's a lot of ups and downs, so be prepared. It's not like that the whole time, but it's definitely a lot. It's definitely like that a lot in that first 2.5 mile stretch. Now, there's a little bit of it from the bridge I showed you, the Walker Branch Trailhead, as you continue northbound to the North Landing, but it's definitely a beautiful section. And this section's pretty interesting so far too. I showed you the long bridge a little while ago, but we're gonna go ahead and keep on cruising, and I'll keep showing you some more stuff along the way. All right, we're crossing another footbridge. As you can see, straight ahead is the levee section. All right, it pops you out here on the levee. You can see where we just came from. And that's the levee. The lake's over to the right. You can see the orange blaze right down here. Just follow that for a little ways until it tells you to get off the levee. And that levee walk took about half a mile, and it's gonna pop us off, and we're gonna start running parallel to Spillway Road and connect that in a few minutes. At a little after mile marker 7, we're at Spillway Road. We're going to be crossing this a couple of times. This is actually the entrance to the East Landing of Chicot State Park, and the road continues that way. And so we're going to keep going in this direction. We're about at mile marker 8. We're just taking a short break now, about to cross this bridge. I'm not going to do this while I'm walking with Jay, but this is definitely an interesting bridge to cross, as you can see here. That ought to be a lot of fun. All right, we're at mile marker 9 now, taking a short break. Apparently, Jay just doesn't seem to get tired much. I think she's ready to end today's hike as well. I haven't been showing much here on the East Landing. I mean, it is nice. There's been a couple of sharp height elevations and drops, but outside of that, it's fairly flat, which is a good thing. We're actually gaining some miles pretty quick. But you know, for the most part, the most exciting part of this trail is definitely on the west side of this loop. But I mean, it's still very nice out here. So we've got about 3 miles to go, and we'll be probably getting to camp probably in about an hour and a half. All right, we're approaching campsite 6. I just wanted to point out though that there's some serious blowdown. We had to cross a large log to get over here, so it might be a little while before they clear that up. So if you come early in 2023, be on the lookout for that if you're on this section. All right, we're at the campsite now. About ready to eat some supper and chill out for the rest of the night. It definitely changed a lot today with the weather. When we first came out here, it was in the mid 40s, chilly and sunny, and now it is in the upper 60s, and it's cloudy and it's humid. Welcome to Louisiana. So we are going to just hang out the rest of the evening, and tomorrow morning, I'm not sure what time we're going to start, but we have about 7 miles, 8 miles at the most left to finish this trail tomorrow. I would have to say, just rounding out day one, I think that the western section of the lake, I mentioned it earlier, is very nice. I mean, it's definitely more of a challenge. Now, there were a couple of inclines on the east side, but there was more on the west side. So I think that if you're going to do this type of hike like I'm doing, where I did day one, the long day, I think you're going to make up some miles towards the back half of it once you get from, say, like around the East Landing back in this direction to campsite 6. But definitely that blowdown was a mess. I mean, we had to literally had to pick Jay up and put her on top of the log, and then I had to climb up and then get our stuff over. And unfortunately, I lost a bottle of water along the way. So luckily, it's only about 4/10 of a mile away. I'm going to try to go back out there tomorrow and try to find it so we have a little extra to get back to our car tomorrow. But that's it for this evening, and we'll start up again tomorrow morning. All right, it's now Thursday morning. We're back on trail. Just leaving the trail that goes to campsite number 6. We're going to continue in this direction. We have about 7 to 8 miles left to finish the day. A little less than 4 miles left of the loop, and this is the last long bridge to cross for the day. Another beautiful scene. All right, I wanted to go ahead and give my wrap up. We finished the trail a little bit earlier. That last mile marker sign was mile marker 19, and it looked like it was about another half of a mile to get back to the South Landing trailhead. So depending upon what you look at, the map at Chicot State Park shows it about 19 and a half. There's a couple of other things out there that say no, it's not 20. It's right around 20, but it's a little under 20. And I didn't show a whole lot down the stretch because really it was a lot more similar views as to what you saw in day one and the beginning of day two. But definitely a beautiful hike to take. I would have to say though that depending upon your condition physically, you may want to consider a 3-day hike and just spend 2 nights and just break it up a little bit. Do about 5.5 to 6 miles one day, another 6 the other day, and then finish it up because of those elevation changes. Even though it's just north of Ville Platte, a lot of people think, well, it's still South Louisiana. Yes, it is, but it is the start of a different geological area where you're getting into a heavily wooded area, and it also starts to have some rolling hills. And central Louisiana is like minutes away from Chicot State Park, and that's where you start getting more in the northwesterly direction. From there you get to Kisatchie area, so definitely prepare yourself for that. I would say you probably want to just look at where you want to start and figure out your mileage. Unfortunately, there's only one campsite, which was on the east side where we stayed last night, and that's campsite number 6. And so I've read there's been people that have actually started these landing, and then they work their way either clockwise or counterclockwise, which makes sense because then they could get that 5.5 to 6 mile duration in, and then hike another even distance for the most part. But definitely in regards to a loop trail in Louisiana that's about 20 miles, there's really nothing else out there like that. I mean, you can find probably some things you can figure out on your own, but a designated trail of that length where it loops completely around and brings you back to where you start is about the only thing that we have like that in this state. But it was definitely a fun hike, but it was a challenging hike. As I mentioned a couple of things earlier, there were some challenges. It started before we even got on trail. I went to get Jay out of the car to start the hike, and her leash had broken. So I'm like, okay. So I hurried up, drove to Ville Platte, got one, came back, which only put me out about 30 minutes, but nevertheless, there were a few things along the way. And for those of you who haven't really done any type of through hikes or section hikes where you have the overnight backpacking, you're gonna have them. What I just suggest is just keep on going. Unless it's something that you really feel like, okay, I need to stop and turn around or get off the trail, just keep going. Just take your time, figure out how to adjust, and keep going. We had several of those. Even last night, it started raining. Didn't expect it to rain last night, but it did. And unfortunately, we got a little water in the tent, but got around that too. So definitely, if you want to try something where you're going to do it multiple days, I definitely suggest you go there. But you definitely want to make sure that you're in decent shape to do it because of what I mentioned earlier with the elevation changes. But all in all, it was an awesome hike, and I hope you enjoyed watching this particular featured video on the Lake Chicot Loop, and I'll see you again soon on another Louisiana trail.